Captain Hana Kim stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Baekdu, watching the stars through the main window. Her crew had been traveling for 3 months looking for new worlds and alien life. The ship was part of Earth's Korean Stellar Division, one of many groups sent out to explore the galaxy. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the next star system," said Jiho Park, her tactical officer. He was a tall man with serious eyes who never missed anything important. "There are lots of metal structures orbiting the planets. Too many to be natural." Hana walked over to look at his screen. The readings showed massive cities floating in space around several planets. Whoever built them was very advanced. "How big are those structures?" she asked. "Some of them are larger than Earth's biggest space stations," said Mina Lee, the chief engineer. She was small but very smart, and could fix anything on the ship. "Captain, I think we found our first real alien civilization." The crew got excited. After years of finding empty planets and dead rocks, they had finally discovered intelligent life. Taeho Choi, their xenobiologist, was already running scans to learn more about the aliens. He was young but knew more about alien life than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, I'm detecting movement," said Hyunwoo Nam, the ship's diplomat. He was calm and spoke many languages, which made him perfect for first contact. "3 alien ships are coming toward us. They're big, but they don't seem hostile." Hana felt nervous but excited. This was what they had trained for. "I'll stop. Prepare for first contact protocols. Somi, start recording everything." Somi Yoon, their intelligence analyst, began recording all the data they could gather. She was quiet but very good at noticing things others missed. "Captain, the alien ships are beautiful. They look like they're made of crystal and metal mixed together." The alien ships approached slowly. They were indeed beautiful, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. The largest ship was twice the size of the Baekdu, but it moved with grace through space. "We're receiving a transmission," said Sunho Bai, their communications officer. He was young and always eager to help. It's in perfect Korean. How is that possible?" "Put it through," Hana ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking Korean with a slight accent. "Greetings, travelers from Earth. We are the Vorthak. We welcome you to our space. We have been waiting to meet humans for a long time." The crew looked at each other in surprise. How did the aliens know Korean? How did they know about humans at all?
"This is Captain Hana Kim of the Earth ship Baekdu," she replied.
"We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." "We are honored to meet you, Captain Kim. We too are explorers and seekers of knowledge. Would you visit our homeworld? We have much to show you about our civilization." Hana thought carefully. The aliens seemed friendly, but something felt strange about how well they spoke Korean. "We would be honored to visit your world. But first, may we ask how you learned our language? We have studied many species across the galaxy. Learning languages helps us understand other cultures. We believe all intelligent life should work together for the good of everyone." This made the crew feel better. The alien sounded wise and peaceful. Yuna Kwan, a young technician, whispered to her friend, "They sound almost too good to be true." The Vorthak ships led the Baekdu toward their homeworld. As they got closer, the humans could see incredible sights. The planet was covered with crystal cities that reached high into the sky. Floating gardens moved through the air between tall towers. Everything looked clean and beautiful. "Captain, I'm seeing technology I don't understand," said Mina. "Their energy readings are off the charts, but there's no pollution or waste heat. How do they do it?" "Perhaps they will teach us," said Taeho. "Think of what we could learn from them. This could change everything for humanity." The Baekdu landed at a spaceport that looked like it was made of living crystal. The Vorthak who met them were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore flowing robes that seemed to shift colors in the light. "Welcome to Vorth Prime," said their leader, who called himself Elder Keth. "We are so pleased to finally meet humans. Your species has such interesting qualities." "What do you mean by interesting qualities?" asked Hyunwoo politely. "Humans adapt so quickly to new situations. You learn fast and create new solutions to problems. Very impressive for such a young species." The humans spent the next few days touring the Vorthak cities. Everything was amazing. The aliens showed them how they grew food in floating gardens, how they created energy from something they called biomatter, and how they traveled between stars using ships that seemed alive. "How long has your civilization existed?" asked Hana during a formal dinner. "Many thousands of years," replied Elder Keth. "We have seen the rise and fall of many species across this part of the galaxy." What happened to those other species? Asked Somi quietly. Elder Keth paused for a moment. Some destroyed themselves with wars. Others could not adapt to changes in their environment. The galaxy can be a harsh place for those who cannot survive. Kiwoo Jung, a junior science officer, noticed that Elder Keth looked sad when he talked about the other species. But there was something else in his expression that Kiwoo couldn't understand. The Vorthak told the humans about their great work, a project to help all life in the galaxy reach its full potential. They said they studied different species to understand what made them successful, then used that knowledge to help everyone grow stronger. We would like to study humans too, said Elder Keth. Your adaptability is something we have rarely seen. Would you allow us to learn from you? What kind of study? Asked Hana carefully. Simple things. We would like to understand how humans think and solve problems. Nothing that would hurt you, of course. The crew agreed to stay longer and help with the studies. The Vorthak gave them comfortable rooms in one of their crystal towers and provided everything they needed, but Somi was still worried about something. She spent her free time looking at the historical records the Vorthak had shared. According to their data, dozens of intelligent species had once lived in this part of the galaxy. Now only the Vorthak remained. Where did all the other species go? She asked Jaewon Ko, their navigator, as they walked through one of the crystal gardens. Elder Keth said they died out naturally, Jaewon replied. But you're right, it does seem strange that so many would disappear completely. I want to investigate some of the ruins on the other planets, Somi said. Maybe we can learn more about what really happened to them. Daeun Oh, the ship's medical officer, had been studying Vorthak biology with their permission. She found their genetic structure fascinating but very complex. They seem to have DNA from many different sources, she told Taeho, as if they've somehow combined genetic material from multiple species. That's impossible, said Taeho. Evolution doesn't work that way, unless they did it artificially, Daeun said quietly. Meanwhile, in Haseo, one of the cultural specialists noticed that the Vorthak asked very specific questions about human society. They wanted to know about human military capabilities, population numbers, and the location of Earth's colonies. Why do they need to know about our defenses? She asked Hyunwoo. Maybe they're just curious, he replied, but he was starting to feel uncomfortable too. As the days passed, small things began to worry the crew. The Vorthak watched them constantly. Their rooms had no locks, and they noticed security devices hidden in the walls. When they asked to contact Earth, the Vorthak said their communication systems were being repaired. Something doesn't feel right, Hana told her senior officers during a private meeting. They're too interested in our military and too vague about their own history. Should we leave? Asked Jiho. Not yet. We need more evidence before we accuse them of anything, but everyone stay alert. The crew didn't know that their greatest fears were about to be confirmed in the worst possible way. Kiwoo Jung couldn't sleep. Something about the Vorthak homeworld bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what. After 3 weeks of staying in the Crystal Tower, he decided to explore some of the ruins he had seen from the air during their tours. The next morning, Kiwoo told his supervisor he wanted to study some old buildings on the edge of the main city. The Vorthak guide assigned to him, a female named Yira, seemed nervous about the request. Those ruins are very old and dangerous, Yira said. The structures might collapse. It would be better to study our modern buildings instead. I'm a trained archaeologist, Kiwoo replied. I know how to be safe around old structures. Besides, understanding your history will help us learn about your culture. Yira couldn't argue with that logic, so she agreed to take him to the ruins. But she insisted on staying nearby for his safety. The ruins were strange. They didn't look like Vorthak architecture at all. The building style was completely different, with curved walls and organic shapes that seemed to flow like water. Kiwoo had never seen anything like it. Who built these? He asked Yira. An old species that lived here long ago, she replied quickly. They died out before we arrived. We know very little about them. Kiwoo explored the ruins carefully, taking pictures and measurements. The buildings were definitely not Vorthak construction. They were older and more advanced in some ways. As he worked, he noticed that Yira stayed far away and kept looking around nervously. After lunch, Yira said she had to return to the city for an important meeting. Please don't go into the underground areas, she warned. They are not safe. Of course, that made Kiwoo want to explore underground even more. After Yira left, he found an entrance to what looked like a basement or tunnel system. He turned on his flashlight and went inside. The underground area was huge. Tunnels led in many directions, and some opened into large chambers. Everything was covered in dust, but the wall showed signs of advanced technology. Strange symbols were carved into metal panels that still glowed faintly with power. Kiwoo followed one tunnel that seemed to lead toward the Vorthak city. After walking for an hour, he came to a heavy door that was slightly open. Light came from the other side, and he could hear voices speaking in the Vorthak language. He looked through the crack in the door and almost screamed. The room beyond was filled with glass containers, each one containing a living creature floating in blue liquid. But these weren't Vorthak. They were aliens of many different species, some with fur, others with scales, some that looked almost human, and others that were completely unlike anything he had ever seen. Most of the creatures in the containers were unconscious, but a few moved weakly as if they were trying to escape. Vorthak scientists in white robes moved between the containers, checking readings and taking samples. Kiwoo watched in horror as one scientist removed a small creature from its container. The creature was awake and struggling, but the scientist calmly cut off one of its arms and placed the limb in a preservation unit. The creature's silent scream behind the glass made Kiwoo feel sick. He forced himself to keep watching. The Vorthak took samples of blood, tissue, and organs from dozens of different aliens. They seemed to be studying how different species' bodies worked. But this wasn't just research. They were treating the aliens like laboratory animals. One container held a creature that looked almost human, except for its green skin and 4 arms. The creature was awake and pressing its hands against the glass, trying to get the attention of the Vorthak scientists. But they ignored it completely. Kiwoo took pictures with his camera, trying to document everything he saw. He had to get this evidence back to Captain Kim. As he watched, more Vorthak entered the room carrying new containers with different aliens inside. Then he saw something that made him understand the terrible truth. On the far wall was a chart showing different alien species. Each species had detailed biological information and something marked as harvest status. Most of the species were marked as complete in red letters. Only a few showed in progress in yellow. At the bottom of the chart was a new entry that made Kiwoo's blood freeze. It showed a picture of a human and was marked, "Study phase, prepare for harvest, Kiwoo." Now understood what had happened to all the other species the Vorthak claimed had died out. Naturally, the Vorthak had killed them all, keeping only small groups alive for medical experiments, and now they planned to do the same thing to humanity. He started to back away from the door, but his foot kicked a piece of metal debris. The sound echoed through the tunnel and the voices in the laboratory stopped. "What was that?" said a Vorthak voice. "Check the old tunnels. Make sure no one is there." Kiwoo ran. He sprinted through the dark tunnels as fast as he could, using his flashlight to avoid crashing into walls. Behind him he could hear Vorthak voices and footsteps getting closer. He made it to the surface just as the sun was setting. Without stopping to rest, he ran all the way back to the crystal tower where the human crew was staying. He had to warn Captain Kim immediately, but when he reached the tower he found that getting to the captain would not be easy. Vorthak guards were stationed at every entrance, and they politely but firmly told him that the human crew was in evening meditation and could not be disturbed. "I need to speak with Captain Kim right now," Kiwoo insisted. "It's an emergency." "The captain will be available in the morning," the guard replied. "Please return to your room and rest." Kiwoo realized that the Vorthak were controlling when and where the humans could go. They were prisoners, even if they didn't know it yet. He went to his room but immediately started looking for another way to contact his crewmates. The communication device in his room only connected to Vorthak systems, not to other humans on the ship. The windows didn't open, and there were no balconies or other ways to leave the room except through the guarded hallway. Kiwoo spent the night planning how to warn the others. He studied the photos he had taken and tried to understand what the Vorthak were really doing. The creatures in the laboratory represented dozens of different species. Each one was being kept alive just long enough for the Vorthak to study their biology and harvest useful genetic material. In the morning, Kiwoo was finally allowed to join the other crew members for breakfast. He sat next to Daeono, the medical officer, and whispered urgently, "I need to speak with you and the captain privately. I found something terrible." Daeon saw the fear in his eyes and nodded. "I'll arrange something." After breakfast, Daeun told their Vorthak guides that she wanted to examine some local plant life for medical research. She brought Kiwoo as her assistant, claiming she needed help carrying equipment. They were allowed to go to a small garden area, where Daeun pretended to study flowers while Kiwoo told her what he had discovered. "Are you sure about what you saw?" Daeun asked quietly. "I took pictures, look." Kiwoo showed her the images on his camera. Daeun's face went pale as she looked at the photos. As a medical officer, she immediately understood what the Vorthak were doing. This is systematic biological harvesting. They're treating intelligent species like lab rats. "We have to warn the captain and get off this planet," Kiwoo said. "First, I need to confirm something." Daeun had been studying Vorthak biology during their visit. Now she understood why their genetic structure was so complex. "I think the Vorthak have been adding genetic material from other species to their own DNA. That's why they're so advanced. They steal the best traits from everyone they kill." They returned to the tower and found a way to secretly contact other crew members. By evening, word had spread to Captain Kim, Jiho Park, and the other senior officers. The crew met in small groups, pretending to socialize while actually planning their escape. "How many aliens did you see in that laboratory?" Captain Kim asked Kiwoo during a quiet moment. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. And that was just one facility." "We have to get back to Earth and warn them," said Jiho. "If the Vorthak are planning to harvest humanity, Earth needs to prepare for war." But when Sunho Bay tried to send a message to Earth, he discovered that all long-range communications were blocked. The Vorthak claimed their communication array was still being repaired, but Sunho suspected they were jamming all signals to prevent the humans from calling for help. "We're trapped," Somyun said during their emergency meeting. "They're keeping us here while they plan how to harvest our entire species." "Then we fight our way out," said Captain Kim. "Ready the ship for immediate departure. We leave tonight." The crew prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They had to escape from an alien world, fight through their ships, and reach Earth before the Vorthak could begin their harvest of humanity. But they didn't know that the Vorthak had been watching them all along, and their hosts were already preparing for the humans' escape attempt. Captain Hana Kim looked at her crew gathered in the small storage room. They had to whisper to avoid being heard by the Vorthak listening devices hidden throughout the tower. Everyone looked scared but determined. "We leave in 2 hours," she said quietly. "Jiho, take Kiwoo, Yuna, and Woojin. Get to the ship and start the engines. Mina, you'll need to override their docking clamps without setting off alarms. Everyone else pack only essential items. We may have to fight our way out." Teho raised his hand. "Captain, what about the other aliens in the laboratory? We can't just leave them." "I know it's horrible, but we can't save them if we're all dead. Our job is to warn Earth so this doesn't happen to billions of humans." The crew split up and returned to their rooms to prepare. They had to act normal until the last moment to avoid suspicion. Daeono put together a medical kit with supplies they might need. Somyun downloaded all the data she could about Vorthak technology and military capabilities. Yunwoo Nam studied the building layout, looking for the best escape route. The crystal tower had only 2 exits and both were guarded. They would have to create a distraction to get past the Vorthak security. At midnight, the plan began. Jaewon Ko and In Haseo started a small fire in the tower's kitchen area by overloading a food preparation device. When the alarms went off, most of the guards rushed to deal with the emergency. Jiho's team slipped out through a service entrance and ran toward the spaceport. The Baekdu was only a few kilometers away, but they had to move carefully through the Crystal City without being seen. "There are guards at the spaceport entrance," whispered Woojin as they crouched behind a building. "I can create another distraction," said Yuna. She was small and fast, perfect for sneaking around.
"Give me 5 minutes, then run for the ship." Yuna disappeared into the shadows.
A few minutes later, explosions began going off at a power station on the other side of the spaceport. All the guards ran toward the explosions, leaving the entrance clear. Jiho's team sprinted to the Baekdu. The ship's main hatch was still open, but Vorthak security devices had been attached to the hull. Kiwoo used his engineering tools to carefully remove the devices while Woojin started the ship's systems. "Engines are warming up," Woojin reported, "but we need at least 10 minutes before we can launch." Meanwhile, back at the tower, the rest of the crew was trying to escape. But the Vorthak had discovered the kitchen fire was not an accident. Elder Keth and a dozen armed guards surrounded the humans in the main lobby. "Going somewhere, Captain Kim?" Elder Keth asked. His friendly mask was gone, replaced by a cold, predatory expression. "We know you found our research facility. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Let my crew go, Hana demanded. We just want to return to our ship. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, we've learned everything we need about human biology. It's time to begin the harvest. The Vorthak guards raised weapons that looked like crystalline tubes. Energy crackled along their surfaces, and Hana realized these were not stun weapons. Run, she shouted. The crew scattered in different directions. Daeun and Sunho ran up the spiral staircase leading to the upper floors. Somi and Hyunwoo dove behind furniture as energy bolts burned through the air where they had been standing. Hana pulled out the sidearm. She had hidden under her jacket and shot at Elder Keth. The bullet hit his shoulder, spinning him around. Purple blood splattered on the crystal walls. Humans have weapons, Elder Keth screamed.
Kill them all!
We only need a few alive for final study.
A running battle erupted through the tower. The humans had small firearms, but the Vorthak had energy weapons and knew the building layout. Jaewon and Inha were trapped on the upper floors, while the others fought their way toward the exits. At the spaceport, Mina had reached the Baekdu and was working frantically to release the docking clamps. The Vorthak have locked us down with some kind of energy field, she told Jiho over the radio. I need more time to break us free. We don't have more time, Jiho replied. Vorthak ships are launching from other parts of the spaceport. They'll be here in minutes. Yuna suddenly appeared at the ship's hatch, bleeding from a cut on her arm. I overloaded their power grid, but it won't stay down long. We need to go now. Inside the ship, Woojin had finished starting the engines. Captain Kim, where are you? We're ready to launch. Hana's voice came over the radio, mixed with sounds of fighting. Get the ship ready. We're coming. She and the others were fighting their way through the crystal gardens surrounding the tower. Vorthak guards were everywhere, shooting energy bolts that turned flowers into ash and melted holes in the crystal pathways. Sunho had been hit in the leg and was limping badly. Daeun supported him as they ran, returning fire at the pursuing guards. I can slow them down, Sunho said, pulling out a grenade from his emergency kit. No, Daeun shouted, but Sunho had already pulled the pin and thrown himself back toward the guards. The explosion brought down part of the tower's outer wall, burying several Vorthak guards and blocking the main pursuit. But Sunho was gone. The remaining crew reached the spaceport just as Vorthak fighter ships began circling overhead. Mina had finally broken the docking clamps and the Baekdu's engines were roaring to life. Everyone aboard, Hana shouted as they ran up the ship's ramp. But Elder Keth and more guards appeared at the spaceport entrance. You cannot escape, he screamed. We will harvest your entire species. Every human will feed our great work. The Baekdu lifted off just as energy bolts began hitting its hull. Jiho took the weapon station and returned fire, destroying several Vorthak ground positions. But more enemy ships were coming. Jaewon, get us out of here, Hana ordered as she stumbled onto the bridge. Where are we going, Captain? Jaewon asked as he programmed the navigation computer. Terra Nova Colony. It's the closest human outpost. The Baekdu climbed rapidly through the planet's atmosphere, pursued by dozens of Vorthak fighters. The alien ships were fast and well-armed, but they seemed surprised by human weapons and tactics. Their shields aren't designed to stop solid projectiles, Jiho reported as he destroyed another enemy fighter. They expect energy weapons. That gives us an advantage, said Mina from the engine room. But not for long. They're learning fast. As they reached space, larger Vorthak ships moved to intercept them. These were warships much bigger than the Baekdu and armed with weapons that could destroy them with a single shot. Jump to hyperspace, Hana ordered. The hyperspace drive is damaged, Jaewon replied. Those energy hits overloaded several systems. I need time to repair them. We don't have time, said Yuna from the sensor station. Those big ships are charging their main weapons. Wu Jin had an idea. What if we overload our own engines? Create a massive energy pulse that might disable their ships? That could destroy us too, Mina warned. Better than being harvested, Hana said grimly. Do it. Wu Jin and Mina worked together to overload the ship's main reactor. Energy built up to dangerous levels throughout the Baekdu's systems. Warning alarms screamed as the ship began shaking apart. Now, Hana shouted. They released all the built-up energy in a single massive pulse. The wave of power swept out from the Baekdu, overloading the electronics on nearby Vorthak ships. Several fighters exploded and the larger warships were temporarily blinded. In that moment of confusion, Jaewon activated the repaired hyperspace drive. The Baekdu disappeared from Vorthak space in a flash of light, leaving the angry aliens behind. but the escape had cost them dearly. Sunho was dead and several other crew members were injured. Worse, the ship's hyperspace drive was barely working. They might not make it to Terra Nova. "How long until we reach the colony?" Hana asked. 18 hours if the drive holds together, J1 replied. "But Captain, we have bigger problems. I downloaded intelligence data before we left. The Vorthak have a huge fleet, and they're planning to attack human space in less than 6 months." Somi looked up from the data she was analyzing. "It's worse than that. They know the locations of all our major colonies and Earth itself. Someone has been feeding them information about humanity for a long time." The crew realized they were racing against time. They had to warn Earth about the Vorthak threat, but they also had to convince the human government that the danger was real. And they had to do it all before the largest alien fleet in galactic history arrived to harvest the entire human species. The Bekdu limped through hyperspace toward Terra Nova, carrying the most important warning in human history. The Bekdu arrived at Terra Nova colony with smoke pouring from its damaged engines. Captain Hana Kim barely had time to land before colonial security surrounded the ship. The crew looked like they had been through a war, and their story sounded impossible. "You're telling me an alien species has been committing genocide across the galaxy for thousands of years?" asked Inha Seo, the colonial administrator. She was a middle-aged woman who had seen many strange things on the frontier. But this was beyond belief. "Show her the pictures," Hana said to Kiwoo. Kiwoo displayed the photos he had taken in the Vorthak laboratory, the images of aliens trapped in glass containers and being harvested for biological material made everyone in the room go silent. "This is what they do," said Dayun, her voice shaking with anger. "They study a species, learn everything about their biology, then kill them all except for small groups they keep for experiments. They've done this to hundreds of intelligent species." Inha studied the photos carefully. As a colonial administrator, she had to make decisions that affected thousands of lives. "If this is true, why haven't we heard of the Vorthak before?" "Because they kill everyone who discovers them," said Somi. "We only escaped because they underestimated human weapons and tactics." Taiho pulled up the data they had stolen from Vorthak computers. "Look at this timeline. Every few centuries they completely wipe out another species. They're systematic about it. They study their targets for years before attacking. And according to their records, humanity is next," added Jaewon grimly. Inha looked at the evidence for a long time. Finally, she stood up. "I'm sending this information to Earth immediately. Admiral Seok Han needs to see this." Within hours, the news had spread to every human colony and military base. The reaction was unlike anything in human history. People weren't just afraid, they were furious. Admiral Seok Han called an emergency meeting of all military commanders. He was an old soldier who had fought in the colonial wars, but he had never seen anything like the Vorthak evidence. "How many ships do they have?" he asked Captain Kim via video link. "Our sensors detected at least 1,000 warships in their home system alone," Hana replied. "But they have colonies in dozens of other systems too. Their total fleet could be 10 times that size. And they're coming to harvest us in 6 months?" "According to their timeline, yes, sir. They'll start with the outer colonies and work their way toward Earth." Admiral Han was quiet for a moment. Then his expression hardened. "Send word to every human fleet commander. Full mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. This is not just about defending ourselves anymore." Chancellor Minji Ryu of the United Earth Government made an announcement that changed everything. Standing before cameras that broadcast to every human world, she spoke with cold determination. "Citizens of humanity," she began, "we have discovered that an alien species called the Vorthak has been systematically exterminating intelligent life throughout the galaxy for thousands of years. They have killed hundreds of species, destroying entire civilizations and unique forms of life that will never exist again." She paused, letting the magnitude of that statement sink in. "The Vorthak plan to do the same to us. They see humanity as just another species to be harvested, and our worlds as resources to be consumed. But they have made a terrible mistake. They have threatened not just our existence but our future, our children, and everything we hold dear." Her voice grew harder. "Therefore, the United Earth Government declares that the Vorthak species represents an existential threat to all life in the galaxy. We will not merely defend ourselves. We will hunt down every Vorthak ship, every Vorthak world, and every Vorthak individual until their threat is completely eliminated." The declaration sent shockwaves through human space. This wasn't just a war. It was a promise of complete extermination. Dr. Woojin Lim, humanity's leading xenobiologist, studied the Vorthak genetic data that Dayun had collected. What he found made him smile coldly. "They've made themselves vulnerable," he told the military council. "By incorporating genetic material from so many different species, they've created weaknesses in their own DNA. All Vorthak share certain modified genes. If we can target those specific sequences—" "You mean create a biological weapon?" asked Admiral Han. "I mean create a cure for the galactic cancer they represent." Meanwhile, Commander Unjian was leading the development of new weapons specifically designed to fight the Vorthak. Human military factories worked around the clock, producing ammunition and ships at a rate never seen before. "Their energy shields are strong against directed energy weapons," she explained to her weapons design team, "but they're weak against kinetic projectiles. Bullets, missiles, railgun rounds will overwhelm them with mass and velocity." The human fleet that began assembling was massive. Every ship from cargo haulers to luxury yachts was converted for military use. Civilian factories stopped making consumer goods and started building weapons. Even children in schools began making simple components for military equipment. Bora Shin, a war correspondent, traveled between human worlds to document the transformation. What she saw amazed her. "Humanity is changing," she wrote in her reports. "I've watched peaceful colonies turn into military bases in weeks. I've seen farmers learning to build missiles and teachers training for combat. The Vorthak wanted to harvest us, but they've created something else entirely, a species united in fury." The most surprising change was in human culture itself. For the first time in centuries, every human colony, every political faction, and every religious group was working toward the same goal. The threat of complete extinction had erased all other differences. "We're not fighting for territory or resources," explained Captain Nari Song as she trained new recruits. "We're fighting for the right to exist. The Vorthak don't just want to kill us. They want to erase us completely, as if humanity never existed at all." The training programs were brutal, but effective. Humans learned to fight in ways the Vorthak had never encountered. Instead of trying to match alien technology, they used human advantages, creativity, adaptability, and willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. General Kyung Moon supervised the production of the new fleet. Human ships weren't elegant like Vorthak vessels. They were ugly, heavily armored, and designed for one purpose: to destroy the enemy completely. "Each ship carries enough firepower to level a city," he told his staff. "We're not building a fleet. We're building an extermination force." The Vorthak had studied humanity for years, but they had made a crucial mistake. They had focused on human biology and technology, but they had never understood human psychology. They didn't comprehend what happened when humans felt truly threatened. Dr. Yunwoo Jang made the final breakthrough in biological weapons development. Using Vorthak genetic samples, he created a virus that would specifically target their modified DNA. "It's elegant in its simplicity," he explained to the research team. "The virus attacks the same genetic modifications that make them so advanced. Their greatest strength becomes their greatest weakness, and will it kill them quickly?" asked one of the researchers. "No," Dr. Zhang replied coldly. "It will slowly break down their enhanced genetic structure. They'll live long enough to understand what's happening to them, just like their victims did." As the months passed, reports came in from scout ships about Vorthak fleet movements. The aliens were indeed preparing for invasion, assembling the largest military force ever seen. But they had no idea what was waiting for them. "They think they're coming to harvest a primitive species," Admiral Han told his fleet commanders. "They expect us to run or hide or beg for mercy. They don't know that humanity has decided they don't deserve to exist." The human fleet that gathered at the edge of Vorthak space was a terrifying sight. Thousands of ships bristling with weapons, carrying millions of soldiers who had trained for only one mission: complete annihilation of an entire species. Captain Hana Kim, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of her new flagship and looked at the force humanity had assembled. 6 months ago, she had been an explorer seeking peaceful contact with alien life. Now she was leading an extermination fleet. "Are you ready for this?" asked Jiho Park, now her fleet tactical officer. "The Vorthak destroyed hundreds of civilizations," Hana replied. "They turned the galaxy into a graveyard. Someone has to stop them permanently. And if we become monsters in the process..." Hana looked at him with cold eyes. Then we'll be monsters who ensure that genocide never happens again. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for Vorthak territory. The final war for the galaxy was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vorthak territory like a swarm of angry metal insects. Admiral Hana Kim watched from her flagship as thousands of human warships spread out in attack formation. This wasn't a battle. It was an extermination. "Admiral, we're detecting massive Vorthak fleet movements," reported Jiho Park from the tactical station. "They're pulling ships from all over their territory to defend their home system." "Good," Hana replied coldly. "That means we can destroy them all in one place." Fleet Admiral Junho Tak commanded the main assault force from his massive battleship Incheon. His ships were ugly compared to the elegant Vorthak vessels, but they carried enough firepower to crack planets. Human engineering had focused on one goal: overwhelming destruction. "All ships begin the attack," Junho ordered. "Remember, we take no prisoners." The Vorthak showed no mercy to the hundreds of species they harvested. "We will show them the same courtesy." The first battle took place around a Vorthak mining colony. The aliens had never faced anything like human military tactics. Where they expected elegant ship-to-ship combat, the humans used massive waves of missiles and kinetic projectiles. Captain Nari Song led the deep strike squadrons that hunted down fleeing Vorthak ships. Her pilots had trained for months to fight without mercy or hesitation. "Don't let any of them escape," she told her pilots over the radio. "Every Vorthak who lives today will kill innocent species tomorrow." Her fighters swarmed over Vorthak evacuation ships, destroying them even though they carried civilians. The humans had decided that a species capable of systematic genocide didn't deserve to have civilians. The Vorthak fought back with their energy weapons and biotechnology, but they were completely unprepared for human warfare. Human ships didn't try to be efficient or elegant. They simply launched so many projectiles that Vorthak shields were overwhelmed. "Their defensive systems can't handle our volume of fire," reported Mina Lee from the engineering section. "We're literally shooting faster than they can defend." Within days, the human fleet had destroyed every Vorthak presence in the outer systems. The aliens retreated toward their core worlds, but human ships followed them relentlessly. General Kyung Moon led the ground forces that landed on captured Vorthak worlds. What they found confirmed humanity's worst fears. Every planet contained massive laboratory complexes where thousands of alien species were being kept alive for harvesting. "It's worse than we thought," Kyung reported to Admiral Hana. "They have specimens from species going back millions of years. This isn't just recent genocide. They've been doing this since they first developed space travel. The human soldiers freed what aliens they could, but many were too damaged by years of experimentation to survive. The rescued aliens told stories of entire civilizations being wiped out after brief contact with the Vorthak. They came to our world, claiming to be peaceful explorers," said one rescued alien who looked like a giant butterfly. "Within a year, everyone I knew was dead except for the few they kept for their experiments. These stories only made the human forces more determined to completely eliminate the Vorthak." Threat. Dr. Yunwoo Jang had perfected his biological weapon during the journey to Vorthak space. Now he prepared to deploy it in the most devastating way possible. "The virus is ready," he told Admiral Hana. "Once we release it in their atmosphere, it will spread to every Vorthak on the planet within weeks." "Will they suffer?" Hana asked. "They'll experience exactly what they put their victims through. Slow, inevitable death while being completely helpless to stop. Deploy it on every Vorthak world we capture." The final assault on the Vorthak homeworld began 3 months after the human fleet first entered alien territory. By then, the Vorthak had pulled every ship and soldier back to defend their most important planet. Elder Keth, who had tried to capture the human crew months earlier, now stood in the Vorthak command center watching his species' destruction on dozens of screens. "How can they be so ruthless?" he asked his military commander. "We offered them a chance to join our great work. We would have preserved their best genetic material." "They don't want to be preserved," the commander replied. "They want us dead. All of us." The battle for Vorth Prime lasted only hours. Human ships surrounded the planet and began systematic bombardment of every Vorthak city and military base. The aliens' energy shields couldn't protect them from the rain of kinetic projectiles that fell from space. Captain Wu Jin Jung, now commanding his own destroyer, watched Vorthak crystal cities crumble under human fire. "Target their biolaboratories next," he ordered. Make sure they can't harvest any more species ever again. On the planet's surface, General Kyung-moon's forces found the ultimate horror, a vast underground complex containing genetic samples and cultural records from every species the Vorthak had ever destroyed. There are billions of species represented here, Dr. Tai Ho Choi reported as he explored the archives. Some of these samples are so old they predate human civilization by millions of years. Can we use this information to bring any of them back? Asked General Kyung. Some of them, maybe, but most are gone forever. The Vorthak didn't just kill them, they erased them from existence. This discovery filled the human forces with even more rage. The Vorthak hadn't just committed genocide. They had stolen the future evolution and potential of countless species. In the final moments of the battle, Elder Keth transmitted a message to the human fleet. Please, he begged. We can change. We can stop harvesting other species. We can work together for the good of all life in the galaxy. Admiral Hana Kim responded personally. You had thousands of years to stop. You chose to kill hundreds of species instead. You made the galaxy into a graveyard and now you want mercy? We were trying to preserve the best of all life forms. Our great work would have benefited everyone. Your great work was genocide. The galaxy will be better off without you. Hana cut the transmission and gave the final order. Release the virus. End this. Dr. Yonwoo Jang activated the biological weapon from orbit. The virus spread through Vorth Prime's atmosphere, carried by the wind to every corner of the planet. Within days, every Vorthak on the homeworld began to sicken as their enhanced genetics turned against them. The virus spread to other Vorthak worlds through their own transportation systems. Within months, the entire species was dying from the same kind of slow, helpless death they had inflicted on countless others. Some Vorthak tried to escape to remote systems, but Captain Nari Song's hunter squadrons tracked them down relentlessly. Her ships followed Vorthak refugees across the galaxy, destroying them wherever they tried to hide. No mercy, she told her pilots. No exceptions. A species that commits genocide doesn't get to survive and try again later. The last known Vorthak died on a small mining station at the edge of the galaxy. The human ship that found them reported that the aliens had spent their final days destroying their own genetic modification technology, as if they finally understood what they had become. Within a year, the Vorthak were completely extinct. Every ship, every base, every individual had been hunted down and eliminated. Humanity had succeeded in completely removing them from the galaxy. But the victory came at a cost. The human forces that returned to Earth were different from the explorers who had left. They had become something harder and more ruthless. Admiral Hana Kim gave the final speech at the memorial ceremony held on Earth. Behind her stood monuments to every species the Vorthak had destroyed, built using the genetic and cultural information found in their archives. Today we remember not just our victory, but our responsibility, she said to the assembled crowd. We discovered that genocide was possible on a galactic scale. We learned that peaceful species could be completely wiped out by those who chose violence over cooperation. She looked out at the thousands of memorials, each representing a unique civilization that would never exist again. We stopped the Vorthak, but we cannot bring back what they destroyed. Billions of years of evolution, countless works of art, scientific discoveries, and unique ways of thinking, all lost forever because one species decided they had the right to harvest others. Therefore, humanity declares itself the guardian of this galaxy. We will explore every system, contact every species, and ensure that what the Vorthak did never happens again. We will be the watchers, the protectors, and if necessary, the warriors who prevent another genocide. The crowd was silent as they absorbed the weight of that promise. We did not want to become killers, Hana continued, but we learned that sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is to completely destroy those who would harm it. The Vorthak chose to be monsters. We chose to be the ones who stop monsters. As she spoke, human ships were already spreading across the galaxy, seeking out new species to protect and establish contact with. But they were also watching for any signs of another species developing the same predatory behavior as the Vorthak. Humanity had won the war, but they had also accepted a burden that would last forever. They had become the galaxy's immune system, ready to eliminate any threat that might attempt systematic genocide. The explorers who had left Earth seeking peaceful contact with alien life had returned as the guardians of all life in the galaxy. They had paid a terrible price to learn that sometimes